How are
Hello,
you? Hello, how
I'm
are
good and
you?
you?
Yeah, I'm well, thank you.
So today we speak about fetters 4 and 5.
Yeah, let's do it. Yes.
Okay, so can you sum up exactly what are the official definitions of 4 and 5?
Wow,
I think
sum
it's
it up.
desire and ill will. For 4 is
Yeah,
desire and 5 is ill will, no?
yeah, desire is the longing that we might feel for things that we don't have, and um ill will is what we tend to do when we feel averse and we want to push something away, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because things don't, I mean, the nub of it really is that things don't always go as we prefer. You know, there's nothing wrong with our actual preferences, and your basic preferences will remain the same or similar, you know, even after reactivity is dispelled. You'll always prefer coffee or tea or something else first thing in the morning, but reactions usually come in when things don't go as we prefer, and also when we resist how we basically feel about that. um, so we're not denying that
So can
sometimes
you
life,
define more resist, what you mean exactly by resist? And then I want to also
yeah,
make another point, but let's start with that. So what do you mean
yeah.
exactly by resist?
Well, I think we know when something happens and we feel like it's almost, um, yeah, we can't accept that something's how it is. And so it's like we're resisting how we fundamentally feel, but it feels like we're actually just trying to push something out or pull something towards that we would prefer to be happening or prefer to be being said. It's a resistance is to something uncomfortable or something unwanted that's happening.
But is
And
it correct to say that resisting is basically a synonym for judging?
resisting, synonym.
So resisting and
Yes.
judging, is it the same?
Yes, it is and it isn't. I think resisting has a more visceral feel, and uh, you do actually feel, to judge something. Often reactions are full of judgment because the mental component, the mental proliferation that happens when we react, is often on the theme of it shouldn't be like this or it should be like that. So there is definitely a judgment that it shouldn't be like it is going on, but it's really experienced usually by people as more like a roller coaster of emotions. Things are going really great for me, I'm ecstatic, or things aren't going great, oh no, it's like a drama. It's not just it should be like this or it shouldn't be like that. It's a push and pulling mechanism, it feels like, as if we've got this internal regulator that's highly sensitive and just goes off on automatic. um, and people do assume it's automatic and even
But what is the
necessary
difference with
to react
judgment,
well.
with judging?
Yeah, what is the difference with judging? Um, well, okay, the only difference is that we assume that it's some mechanism inside ourselves with this illusion that has to do this judging, that has to do this pushing and pulling. And I would say that's the only difference there is. And I know that in some ways you could boil it down to, in effect, it's about judging that things shouldn't be like this. And that is one of the major symptoms. Yeah, once you notice that going on, it shouldn't be like this, you know that you're reacting. But underneath that is, it's almost like the self-referential bit of it, or the bit that's actually illusory, is less conscious than a judgment. I think it's more of a feeling like there's something in us that we've got to escape how we feel and whatever is happening. And it's
But
almost
I,
as
I
if,
still I still don't understand at a practical level the difference with judgment. So it's like something happens, let's say it's a very
mm,
strong emotion or whatever.
mm-hmm,
So isn't the only potential issue the only thing that can be fixed or controlled to not make it a second dart? So basically not to judge it, because you say the emotion is very strong, so what, it happens sometimes, emotions are strong, so
mm-hmm,
but why would we judge that? So
mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a hard time imagining or understanding resistance as being anything else but judgment. So I don't know if maybe you can make me a practical example of resistance being more than judgment.
Okay, resistance being more than judgment. Well, you might not actually have much mental component to it. Some people, something might happen to someone and they don't even know why they suddenly feel upset, but they feel upset. They feel unbalanced. They don't feel that, that they are on safe ground.
Okay, so maybe I can add something then.
Right.
So because the way I would imagine is like I will say there are two ways. Let's say that you feel a strong emotion. So I think there are two kind of actions that can be taken. One is not judging the emotion, because you could say something is wrong with this emotion. So there can be a judgment of the emotion. But the second thing could be the emotion being caused by a story. So the emotion can be real. Let's say, I mean, your cat dies and you feel sad, and that's
For sure.
fine. And why would you judge the fact that you feel sad? Your cat died, you were
No.
attached to your cat. Okay. But now if you think that your cat dies, but you think your cat shouldn't have died, then now there is a story that amplifies the emotion. So it almost feel like there are two, it's like a sandwich. There are two possible kind of judgment. There is, let's say, the emotion is in the middle, and there is there is the potential judgment of the emotion. So let's say you feel sad because your cat died and you think you shouldn't feel sad, but there is also potentially a story, a judgment that caused the emotion, which could be my cat has died. I mean, you will of course naturally feel something, some sort of sadness, but if you believe that your cat should not have died, so you're judging the fact that the cat has died, you could feel much more sadness. So to me, it feels that there is like a sandwich. There is the emotion in the middle, and on one side there is the judgment of the emotion, and on the other side there is the judgment of the event that leads to an amplified emotion.
Right.
But it seems to be judgment either way. So on both sides of the sandwich, it seems to be a judgment.
Well, yeah, maybe you're right, but it's as if we've got I think it's more like an internal regulator, because like you say, certain things will happen and they'll be painful, like loss, like for bereavement. If you lose even an animal, a pet, you can feel very sad. You can feel love, you can feel, there can be this misconception, by the way, that if you get rid of reactivity, you're going to end up like some kind of robot with very limited emotion or something, which isn't the case either. You certainly do feel pleasure, pain, and everything. Sorry.
Because I think there are two. So the emotion can be produced by two things. One, some natural event, the cat dies. But the second can be a story. So you could have the negative emotion because you think the cat should not have died. And this, you can remove the story. But of course, you don't become a robot, because you still feel sad because the cat dies, even if you don't amplify it by saying the cat should not have died. But you still feel sad.
Yes, but sometimes it's not as straightforward as, you feel like you shouldn't feel sad. Sometimes it can be those kind of conditionings. Say you've been told, the classic British one is just to have a stiff upper lip. You shouldn't be emotional in the face of things that actually are normal to be emotional about. So yeah, that would be an example of a judgment coming on top of a natural emotion. But I think it's almost like sometimes people don't even know that they feel uncomfortable about something, because part of the reaction is to keep you from feeling the initial pain. This is where it slightly differs for me, because and this is why sometimes when people are working with reactivity, they can uncover some trauma that they didn't even know about, because reactions can be partly to not feel, in fact, to be more of a robot, to be more, unfeeling. Because it's not just a reaction to what's actually happening, but how you actually feel about your basic feelings about what's happening.
So you mean that someone thinks that, let's say someone think that they shouldn't feel sad, and instead of failing and then feeling even more pain because they are like, not only they feel sad, but they think they shouldn't feel sad and they don't manage it, they actually manage. So they manage to not feel sad. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, this can be a reaction too. There can be different reactions, and people often think of reactions as being like, anger. For example, somebody does something to me, so I'm gonna, I'm going to get back at them. I'm going to, but that's not really, I mean, you can equally have a reaction of passivity. You can have a reaction of not responding assertively or appropriately and looking after yourself because you're frightened. Fear is a classic reaction. So, that whole thing of a deer in headlights, you can have a freeze response, which is partly a reaction as well. And sometimes when people stop reacting, they find that they're actually more responsive in life and are more willing to speak up, for example. Or
because deciding not to respond could be a form of reaction. But still,
yeah.
isn't it the idea that you think it seems almost, I mean, I never thought of this, but it's something we could call a successful judgment. So it's like, let's say if your cat dies, you feel sad and you think I
Yeah.
shouldn't feel sad, but then you don't
Mm.
manage not to feel sad, so you feel even
Right.
more sad. But then potentially you
Right.
could actually succeed. You could say I shouldn't feel sad, and you manage not to feel sad. So do you
Right.
actually feel less sad, or you feel even? I'm not sure. How does it work? If you
I
think you
suppose
shouldn't feel sad, does it
yeah.
work? Can you actually feel less sad? And
I guess it could work temporarily, but you would be
you
you
will
would be
pay the price
squashing.
eventually.
I think there's this saying, isn't there, in somatic therapies, the body holds the score. There's even a title like that, and I think that yes, you can successfully suppress yourself or repress yourself. I don't know. I guess if it's unconscious, it's repressed, but I think somewhere or other it will manifest as tension, conflict, something like that. But what you were saying before about adding a story onto an original pain is traditional Buddhism, really, in terms of
Yeah.
we do experience things not going as we prefer. We do experience pain somewhere along the line in our life, even if it's right at the end when we're ill or we're dying or people around us are dying. And so it's not denying pain. On the other hand, it's not what a lot of people think. It's not that life is suffering, which is how it's often misinterpreted. It's more things, it's more that you can't always avoid pain. You just can't. But then do you have to react? That's the question. And that's the question addressed by desire and ill will inquiry.
But so
You're
one
looking
other thing,
for,
because it's like, I mean, we discussed about this many times, but just
yeah.
to set the record straight. So because desiring and will, even the way you express it now, you say the longing for something, but for my understanding, it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with desire, because if you don't desire even to live, you will not be careful when you cross the street, and
Of
you will get
course.
hit by a car. So I
No, but
intend
longing,
desire more as the
yeah, I meant,
non-judgment, in the sense. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I mean,
no, I
not for
don't
me.
mean,
For me, so
yeah,
desire for me, it's the idea that you don't think, you stop believing that things could or should have been different.
right,
It's not desire in general. It's the specific desire
yeah,
that things could or should have been different. It's
yes,
just this. So
absolutely,
it's an extremely small subset of desire, because some people, they think that it's about not desiring in general, which is
right,
absurd, because if you don't desire to eat and to drink, you will die
right,
within a few days. So it's
right,
desire intended as not expecting or not, or just really realizing, I would say, because in general it's better
yeah,
to use the word realize, not
it's,
realizing that things
yeah,
could not or should, there is no could or should have been different.
yeah, I know. Well, what you say is really important because, I mean, people say silly things like, "Oh, well, we've already discussed this." Well, what if this happened? Would they think of equanimity as being a non-responsiveness, right? So, I mean, but that's stupid because, like you say, I mean, well, to give another example, if I put my hand on something hot like a stove, if I don't react in terms of immediate taking my hand off, that's going to really cause me problems.
That's dangerous. Yeah.
Very dangerous. And so, reactions do not include certain things. They do not include the instinctive responses to take care for the body and to take care in general, really. But this particularly those adrenalized responses to protect the body. So if a car comes near you, you jump out of the way. Of course, you jump out of the way, unless you
Yeah.
really have a death wish, which is maybe another kind of reaction. So it's not about it's not about not responding, but it's not simple as I would argue with you that it's not quite as simple as just being about judging that things should be different. It's more because it's a self-referential illusion. It's about something we have that has to regulate how we respond or cannot tolerate.
But can you
It's
elaborate
amazing.
more on this? Because I never felt that
Yeah.
I have anything that needs to regulate anything. So for me, I
Right.
can only represent it as a judgment. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
there is, so really the idea that, because of course people have desire, it's normal. I mean, again, you
Yeah.
cannot, big desire is what makes you move, what makes you do stuff. So
Right.
without desire, you wouldn't do anything. But the problematic desire is the idea that things should have been different or could have been different, only because it's impossible. Because I mean, the past is the past, and we know that most likely free will is just a story. So
Yeah.
it's just really about realizing that things there is no such thing as should, and things couldn't have been different. So what's the
Yeah.
point about wishing something impossible? And
Well,
that,
yeah.
of
I
course,
mean,
is what produced judgment. So because if you
yeah.
think that things should have been different or could have been different, then you produce a judgment.
Yeah.
But
Well,
can you elaborate on, do you
yeah.
think it's more than that?
Well, methodologically, you do. This is exactly the area you look in, is what you're pointing to, really. Because what I'll do with people is get them to focus on one fact that they wish could be different, that they usually react to. So sometimes, how we typically describe that issue to ourselves is already contains something of the reaction, like he always does, or my son never cleans up his room. Right. So, or no, my son leaves his room very dirty, let's say, or messy. So what you try and do is you find a sentence that encapsulates. You first look at, what do I actually want to be happening instead here that's not happening. So I'd get the person to reframe it into a sentence like, Tom doesn't clean up his room when I ask him to. It's quite a neutral statement, but it's expressing what
What
I
was the
would
original
want.
statement that they make? What will be the original statement?
The original statement, Tom always leaves his room messy, let's say. So that contains the seed of the reaction, because it's a judgment. Okay, it's like
Is
it's very
it? No,
messy
why? It's a statement.
because
It's like he never clean his room. The issue is if you say there is something wrong about it. And to be honest, I think you could even say that there is something wrong about it, because you could say if it annoys you that it doesn't, then you could argue there is something wrong. But the issue is, I think, is the judgment to believe that it shouldn't be like that. So it's like
yeah.
he's not cleaning his room and it's wrong, but that's still okay. It's a statement. So I mean, you don't like it, let's say. So it's like he's not cleaning his room and I don't like it.
Yeah. No,
That's a
it's
normal.
not to
Wait,
say,
sorry, sorry.
yeah.
So, but the issue
Sorry, sorry.
becomes when you say, and there is something wrong about that. Like there is something wrong about the world, about the universe. It shouldn't be like that. Well, it's like that. Up to you to change it.
Yeah.
What do you think about this analysis, this perspective?
Well, again, yeah, you're right. But I think most people, when they look at a fact that is unwanted, however they frame it, positively or negatively, whether they actually think it's right or wrong, beyond the judgment, what they usually find is when they intone a sentence that it contains this unwanted fact, they get a certain set of initial sensations. We call that first start in Buddhist language, which is unpleasant. It might be very subtle. It might just be an icky feeling it's usually in the central channel of the body somewhere. Something feels uncomfortable, something feels wrong, something feels unpleasant, let's say. But the reaction is something different. So it's actually something that comes in to try to mollify that, to make it better. It could be a reaction of, yes, and he never get, a lot of mental proliferation. He's very bad, blah, blah, judgment.
But then the judgment starts, because if you say it's very bad, I mean, it's not exactly that you're saying something is wrong with it. Maybe that's your opinion of him, but I understand, of course, the words don't have to be exact. So maybe when you say he's very bad, what you actually mean is that there is something wrong. But maybe, again, maybe he's bad. I mean, he's bad from your perspective and your preference. So maybe that kid is a pain in the ass because he never cleans his room, and you tell him to clean his room and he just doesn't do it. So you say he's bad. It doesn't mean he's actually bad from some absolute morality. It just means that you find it deeply displeasing that he just never does what you tell him. But I will argue that the judgment is more than that. The judgment is when you believe, yeah, so this kid never clean his room, even when I tell him, and I hate it. But okay, but the judgment will be, and there is something wrong with that. but the reason is like it's just the
Mm-hmm,
way the world is. It's like from the Big Bang to today, the Big Bang
mm-hmm.
produced that kid that is like this, and maybe you can change it, maybe you cannot, but there is nothing wrong with it because the wishing, the in some way the judgment, I think the judgment that something is wrong really implies that it could have been in a different way. Because again, if you fall and you break your leg, you don't blame gravity because you know that you cannot remove gravity. You see
Yeah,
what I mean? So the
yeah,
judgment is always applied. Basically, I will say it like this. I will say the judgment is always applied to something you believe could have been different. So if you
right.
break your leg because you
Mm-hmm.
slip on a soap, on a bar of soap, you don't blame gravity, which is still 50% responsible because without gravity, not you wouldn't have fell.
Yeah.
You blame the bar of soap just because you have the feeling that potentially the bar of soap could not have been there, even if in
Mm-hmm.
reality it could not, because from the Big Bang to today there was a chain of causality that put the bar of soap there. So in some way the bar of soap is just like the gravity. But if I think that if someone judge, that if someone say it shouldn't have been like this, it's because they believe it could have been different. But
Right.
the belief that it could have been different is kind of forgetting that it's a chain of causality from the Big Bang to now. So I think it's not really about if you say, yeah, that kid never cleaned his room, and I even tell him to do it, he doesn't do, and I hate him, and he's a bad kid, and blah blah blah, because those are just observation. I mean, according to your criteria of good kid, bad kid, he's a bad kid, whatever. But that's a judgment, just like you say, good ice cream, bad ice cream. It's
No,
the
I
judgment
would beg
is
to
really
differ. I would
sorry.
beg to
Okay,
differ a little. I would beg
okay,
to differ
okay.
a little bit. I mean, I think profoundly you're right in that, we are judging, think we are expecting life to go always as we'd prefer it to go, and that does go all the way to the ninth fetter. But at this desire and ill will level, it's more that there is a kind of objective maybe in somewhere in there about how clean a room should be, let's say, but
Mm.
take away judgment. It's the difference is between, okay, here is the unwanted fact: the room is messy. It doesn't feel good to see the mess, or even to know that the mess is there. But why
Hmm.
should I react? So what? This is the kind of question I get people
Well,
to
no,
say
but
to themselves.
it depends because
It
if you
doesn't
can,
feel good, but so what? Why do you have to react?
but wait, because maybe you can fix it. So maybe you can say, if you don't clean your
Oh
room, no
yeah,
ice cream tonight.
yes,
So
that
you
could
are
be.
kind of reacting because you are
No,
telling
no,
him
I
you
don't
have
think
24
so.
hours to.
No, no,
Why
I
not?
think
It's,
no, that could be a response. That could be a responsible parenting response to say, because people don't always respond to, a feeling of that they should actually have a clean room or whatever. But they're living in your house. They're your child. They're under 18 or whatever. You can still lay down the law. You can say, if you don't if you don't clean your room, no chocolate ice cream. And that can come from a sort of rational or a non-reactive place, or it can come from a very reactive place where, very heavy. The difference when you're reacting and when you're not reacting to something, right? You
so you
might
mean like
still.
take it personally? That's what you mean when you kind of take it
No,
personally? No.
well, not yes. I mean, that's an example where someone is, say, rude to you in the street, in the marketplace, or in the shop or something, and it won't feel pleasant. But you wouldn't you wouldn't necessarily have to take it personally, for sure. But you wouldn't necessarily have to react in any way. You could just decide. And in fact, not reacting often leaves people much more space to respond more creatively to a
More
situation,
strategically,
because
we could say. So if
yeah.
you don't react, because by reaction you mean some kind of instinctive reaction, and by response you mean some kind of more planned, like a more strategic response. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I don't even mean strategic in that it doesn't have to be thought through. I think the point being that when you take away a lot of the reactivity, it's almost like stepping out of a soap a drama on TV, where everyone's
Mm.
highly strung and everyone's reacting, and you step out of that sort of, you turn the TV off or whatever. It feels there's a space where you used to react, where you used to always rise up and do something about it, and you can actually then have a more natural response to the situation. I used to find, for example, that instead of doing a sort of arguing with the person or whatever I would normally do, I would simply walk away from certain situations which I'd never walked away from before. And it was simply because it wasn't because I'd suddenly become this peaceable, compassionate person, which is what people can think it's about as well, like becoming a nice person. It's because with the absence of the reaction, I just had more options available instantly.
Yeah, I see. I understand. It's like maybe the reaction kind of blinds you and reduce your option, whereas the response gives you. I see. I mean, to me, I still struggle a little bit with this concept, mostly because it's not clear cut. So it's like where exactly it starts and where it ends. So it's like where does the reaction ends and the response start? It's not really clear. So to me, it just seems to be more clear to things in terms of judgment. So it's like in some way, even if that kid doesn't clean his room, and you tell him to clean his room and he still doesn't do it, and you feel very displeased, but so what? You just feel displeased. I mean, basically, I will simplify the word in, if there is something you can do about it, you do it. Let's say you can convince him to clean his room. If there is nothing you can do about it, then you will feel displeased. So, and then let's say that you can, okay, let's make it more simple. So let's say that this kid is not cleaning his room. You have told him a million times to clean his room. He's still not doing it. And you realize that there is nothing you can do. So you just have to accept in some way that he's not going to do it, and you feel displeased. And that's like first dart. But at least you don't judge it by saying there is something wrong about the fact that he's not cleaning his room. And so at least you don't get the second dart. So to me, the judgment is just wish that things could be different. And you remove this through realizing that nothing can be different because it's all a long chain of causality from the Big Bang to now. And then really how you react or respond, in my opinion, is actually almost irrelevant. Because what I will say is, in some way, that kid is not cleaning his room. So really, all you can do is first not wish for things to be different as of now. So you can still respond. So I'm looking at before you react or respond. So let's say the kid is not cleaning his room, and you have told him a million times. He's just not doing it. But you have not yet reacted or responded. Now, but at this stage already, you could have started to judge that something is wrong. But that's just something is wrong with the world or the universe, that this kid should have cleaned his room.
But
that's just wishful thinking, in the sense that,
of course.
Sorry?
Well, you could think that something's wrong with the universe, something's wrong with the child, something's wrong with you.
But more specifically, you think that it could have been different. So I think that, let's say the child is not cleaning his room. You already told him a million times. You have not yet decided what to do about it. Yeah, so we are still before you decide what to do. You could potentially judge it by saying it could have been different, but that's wishful thinking, because it's a chain of thought from the Big Bang to now. So and because it's a single chain, so it's a chain of causality. It's a chain of causality from the Big Bang to now. So realistically, it couldn't have been different. So already by realizing that it could have been different, it could not have been different. You do not judge it before the action you're going to take.
I mean,
because, by the way,
true.
the action you're going to take.
Well, I think what you're saying is true. Sorry, crossing over.
Yes, no, continue, and then I will continue. But
okay, well, I was just going to say that. I mean, did realizing that causality factor, so it couldn't be any different. It's just a sort of rational. It's true, but it's kind of, you've got to it kind of rationally. Did that actually stop you from reacting? I mean, did it actually affect your reactivity?
Well, I rarely reacted in first place, but I will say yes, because I cannot. It's like Santa Claus. It's like the example I use is, imagine that you get some terrible gift, and so you're sad, and there is nothing you can do about it, because you wanted a train and you got, like, I don't know, a pair of socks. So it's terrible. So you're sad. But then if you think that Santa Claus exists, then you say, oh, so Santa Claus doesn't love me because I'm a bad kid. So that's why I got socks instead of a train. And so it's much worse. But if you realize that Santa Claus doesn't exist, then there is no interpretation. There is no judgment, in the sense that you got socks. It's not great. You wanted a train. You are still sad. But that's it. You don't amplify it through judgment. you're not going to get angry, because angry at what? At Santa Claus, but it doesn't exist. You can be sad because you got socks instead of train, but you will not get angry, because to get angry, you have to believe that Santa Claus exists. Now, again, it's like, so I would say so let's go back to the example of the kid. So the kid never cleans his room, and you told him a million times, and still the room is dirty. Now we are still before you decide what to do, but at this point already, before you respond or react, you could judge. So you could feel it could have been different. I could have had a different kid. He could have been more obedient, but you forget that it's just a long chain of causality from the Big Bang to now. There is no, it could not have been different. So if it could not have been different, then what's even the point wishing? It's like wishing there is no gravity. So at this point already you don't judge. And I think the judgment already could lead to the reaction, because maybe by believing that it shouldn't have been like this, then you can kind of respond aggressively, or you can do what you call react. But if you truly believe that it could not have been different, are you really going to react? Can you react if you truly believe it couldn't have been different?
No, you wouldn't. But most people, I mean, I think you're a little.
But I would say, could you? Not you will. I think I would say you couldn't. Even if you wanted to react, even if you wanted to get angry, you couldn't. I mean, you get the socks instead of the train, and you realize that your dad lost his job recently, so now the family is poor. You say, well, shit, I mean, yes, I wanted train, I got socks, but hey, my dad lost his job, now we are poor, he cannot afford the train. You're not going to get angry. But if you think that Santa Claus exists, you say, oh, Santa Claus, I was such a good boy, and you still give me socks, so you are, I deserved more, I deserve better, so you hate Santa Claus, you get angry at Santa Claus. I think that if you don't judge, if you don't believe that things could have been different, you cannot get angry even if you want to. You just cannot.
Yeah, it's true. But for most people, that's almost the final step, what you're talking about, which if in the fetters methodology, it's more piecemeal. You don't like, you don't eat the whole elephant in one go, or whatever the simile is. You normally it's broken up into different parts of self-referential illusion, and the
it's like
final
different degrees, let's say, different degrees.
Yeah, different degrees. And so if people are very emotional, it's almost like a lot of people are, they're not clinically manic depressive, but they're on such an emotional roller coaster in life. This is, more the norm, actually. It's amazing how little tolerance people have for things not going exactly as they prefer or wish. And you may have noticed in your observation of people, most people are, they'll get upset, they'll get angry, they'll do irrational things. Even highly intelligent people will do really crazy, unhelpful things to themselves as much as to other people.
Yes.
And they can't seem to help themselves. And this is the level we're talking about, is like looking. So from a method point of view, I'm getting people to look at, is there really something in you that needs to do that reaction in the first place? And actually, once they realize, oh, there's actually no trigger, no mechanism, no app that's, nothing that has to start up. Actually, there's no link between the feeling uncomfortable and the the acting out reaction. There's no inevitable causal link. Because people do, they think there's a causal link almost between feeling a bit uncomfortable and having to do something about, being compelled.
So you mean, so there is a story, there is a belief that if something unpleasant happens, you have to do something about it. You must react. That's what you mean.
Yes, that's the kind of illusion at that level. And you're talking about something. See, I think you're talking about something more profound, which is the underlying tendencies, which you tackle really in the final fetters of 9 and 10, where you're looking. Basically, things don't always go as we prefer. That's one of the 3 reminders from the Buddha's teachings. It's one of the reminders is they just don't. So. The others being that there is nothing substantial, nothing permanent. People do actually want something other than what is. And once you actually wear down that unrealistic tendency,
Sorry, just a second. Let me just interrupt you 1 second. So I think there is a difference between wanting something different than what is in the future, which is potentially not yet defined, or the past. So one thing is saying, I want ice cream, I'm going to get it.
Right.
And one thing is like you are in the restaurant, you ask for ice cream, they don't have it, and you say they should have it, or they could have had it. So you see, it's different, because in the past it's really a judgment, because whatever is in the past could only have happened that way. So you are in that restaurant, they don't have ice cream. Well, it's not that it just could not have been different, because there is a chain of causality from the point that they say no, they don't have ice cream, to the Big Bang. It's a long chain of causality. So that's it. They don't have it. There is no alternative universe where they have it. There is no. It's not that it just could not have been different. So there is no point judging it. However, for the future, why not? I mean, if you want ice cream, you just go and get it. So I think there is this difference between looking at the past and looking at the future.
Absolutely. No, you're right. That's a good distinction, actually. I mean, the past or the present, the past is in your head as well. It's a thought, isn't it? Or the future. In fact, you can get het up about, in the, you could actually be upset that, you can't predict the future and make it work for you exactly how you might like it to. You might have, or that you can't alter the past. Some people do really suffer that. But for sure, it's, the main cause of this anguish is people trying to create an alternative version of what's happening right now.
But wouldn't you say only of what's happened in the past? So creating an alternative version of what's happened. Why? I mean, maybe
not
also
necessarily.
Present,
I wouldn't.
But as soon as it's in the future, potentially, why not? I mean, you can try to go towards the future that you prefer.
Yeah, but it's almost like I think by implication, if things aren't going as you prefer right now, then they might not in the future too. And I think that it is sometimes it's almost as if we think we can add a program on top of the existing program. Let's say the program is running, this is our lives, this is what's happening right now, and we feel like we can somehow superimpose the version that we would prefer on top of that one, and in that way,
in the present, you mean?
Yeah,
so
but
things could have been different. So let's say I'm in the restaurant without my ice cream, and I think there could have been a present where they have the ice cream right now. So
that's
this.
A classic resisting reality. I mean, you could spend a lot of energy.
But of course, in the instant present, I understand. But let's say in the future, maybe you say, you know what? Then I'm going to the ice cream shop. So in some way, you can still alter the future.
Yeah, well, you can. I mean, that's why some people perhaps live in their head in the future, because in the future it's always a happy place. But it's true that pragmatically speaking, you can plan to, you've had a disappointment. The restaurant didn't have ice cream on the menu, but you could say, well, guess what? There's an ice cream shop just past, near my flat. I'll pass there on the way home, or tomorrow I'll go to a restaurant that definitely has ice cream on the menu.
But in this case, there is no judgment, so it's like it's just a decision to go and get the ice cream.
Yeah, it's just it's just going with a preference, probably, unless you have a terrible chocolate ice cream addiction, in which case maybe you want to look at it. But but mostly it's just a preference, isn't it? That you would have much preferred ice cream to tiramisu.
But of course you can be sad. So you see, you can be in the restaurant, you can be sad that they don't have ice cream, but then so that will be a first start. Of course, you wanted ice cream, there is no ice cream, and so you feel sad as in first start. But then if you judge and say there is something wrong with the fact that there is no ice cream, it could have been different, it should have been different.
Yeah,
then I think that's when the issue starts.
Definitely, that's where the suffering comes in. I mean, the suffering really starts with wishing things were different to how they are. Could have been different, or could be different in the present, either past or present. Yeah. And I think that's what creates the whole bunch of illusions on top of them, because we create the illusion of I am, and all the self-referent illusions out of that wish to create a different version of things. Really, it helps us to feel that we have a place to land, a place where we can create these ideal conditions that we feel we should have, right? Which don't exist. It's not that you can't have pleasure. It's not that you can't have chocolate ice cream, but you can't have it all the time. You'd probably be very sick.
Yeah, but
So
that's a conscious choice that you made yourself based on the consequence. So you are aware that having too much chocolate will be bad for you, and so you keep into account the consequences when you make your decisions. But still, I mean, at least for me, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's a different fetter. Maybe it's fetter, I don't know, 9 or 10. I don't know. But for me, I always imagine that this thing that desire intended as fetter 4 is the judgment that things could or should have been different, because it really makes a lot of sense, because you can desire a million things and there is nothing wrong. I mean, why should there be anything wrong with desire? It's actually nice, even if you will never get it. It's maybe nice to desire. You desire to have a Ferrari. So what? I mean, you like Ferrari, whatever. Of course, the issue will be. The issue will be, why do you desire? So, no, but let me just say this, please. So it's like, because the reason is, do you desire Ferrari because you really love it as a beautiful object of art, or because you tell yourself a story that if you have the Ferrari, then everyone will look up to you and you're cool and blah blah blah. So of course, basically you could potentially desire, let's say, for the wrong reason. That is, you could desire because of a story. So the cause of it, so it could either be a direct desire, like you just desire it, that's it, or it could be that you desire because you tell yourself a story, and then in some way here you should look into why you desire and try to remove the story that makes you desire the Ferrari, just because you think that if you have the Ferrari, then you are someone. But why? It's just a story. So then in this case, you should probably, in this case, then there would be something wrong with the desire, but because the cause of the desire is a story.
I think that you don't want to get too, I mean, you're right, but I think what you're saying is correct. But at the same time, I think we do tend to get too hung up on the words. And okay, so this illusion is traditionally called desire and ill will, but some people actually quote it as being, well, I mean, I think in a way they're all words and labels that point to something. But I think of craving or aversion or ill will as being symptomatic of the illusion more than they're the kind of behaviors that ensue as a result of the illusion being there, because it's not, for example, I remember in the Buddhist community I was in, I know I reference it quite often, but I remember there was this time where if you wanted to buy something extra, you were given a very small wage, but if you needed something extra, say like, I don't know, contact lenses instead of glasses, let's say, people would say, well, is it a want or is it a need? So the need would be a good thing, that would be okay, that would be acceptable. But if it was just a want, that would be by implication rather bad, or to do with greed, or
yeah, but that seems like a judgment. I mean, so I would
well, it was that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And people put a lot of people also judge these kind of words very easily, and they can assume that desire per se, as in wanting something, is a bad thing, and that's not the point. It's only desire and ill will. It's called that because they're like flip sides of the same, they're flip sides of the same thing, or they're rather symptoms of the same thing. It's just that they manifest either as trying to push away this regulating mechanism we think we have. We either push away or we pull towards. So you might spend a lot of time, it might not be literally pulling someone towards you and assaulting them in that way. It might be a mental obsession, longing, thinking about somebody all the time, who say they're married, and you can't be with them. But this is classic, isn't it, in romance stories? And someone is sitting there pining away, mentally obsessing. This is desire. Suffering.
It's kind of a provocative question, but I think it's I mean, I believe what I'm going to say. So it's like, well, what's wrong with greed? I mean, maybe I want to buy a 100-meter yacht. So what? It's like, why? So, but the question will be, what is the reason? So I will say, either you just really like it, you think it's maybe super fun and super enjoyable to have this giant yacht, and you can invite all your friends and have crazy parties. So why? I mean, why should there be a limitation to what you desire? However, the issue could be if the cause of your desire is because you think, if only I had a yacht, then I will be somebody. So now it becomes kind of an identity story.
Yeah.
But this idea, like in the Buddhist center, where they say, yeah, the food is fine, but the contact lens is not. But why not? Maybe I want the 100-meter yacht if I can afford it, or maybe I cannot. But then I buy the smaller one.
Yeah.
But you understand? But the point is, why should there be something wrong with, let's say, having some extravagant desire, like wanting a private jet or a boat or a sport car? Why not? I mean, if you just find it enjoyable, why not?
Yeah.
The question is, because if not, there is kind of a judgment that there is something wrong about just enjoying yourself. And why should there be anything wrong with that? I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
What is wrong is if the cause of the desire is a story. So if only I had that jet or that car or that boat, then I will be somebody. So now you're telling yourself a story that you need that car to be somebody, but you may just like that car. You may just like boats, huge boats. And so why not get a huge boat if you can, of course. Maybe you cannot, then too bad. But if, let's say, you can have the boat, then why not? Why shouldn't you buy the boat?
Well, that's what I was saying. In a way, that's like a more exaggerated version of the glasses versus contact lenses argument. And I think it's ridiculous. But I think that this is it. If people kind of misinterpret the teaching. If you don't have an experiential sense of what it's like to not live with that reactor button, you would pin it on particular behaviors and say, well, if you're behaving like that, like you're ordering a yacht, then you must be, full of craving, and therefore you're, suffering in some way
but
that you don't actually.
But maybe you are. But
right.
But maybe you are. Maybe you really. I mean, at the end, the craving will be. It's also a slippery slope in the sense that it's tricky, because I could say you crave for food, but it's like, if you don't eat, you die. But maybe I really badly want that yacht. But so what? Maybe it's my nature, it's the way my brain is wired. It really wants yachts. My brain really wants yacht. But so what? So it's like, the only thing I can do is not judge it. So if I really want to have a huge yacht, I should accept that that's what I want. And if I can have it, good. If I cannot have it, whatever. But I will not judge that there is something wrong with the universe because I cannot have it. I want it, and I cannot have it, and that's fine. So I think the idea that you shouldn't have craving is really stupid also, because I think it depends where you define cravings, because where does the cravings start and end? It's like food, but you could just eat white rice all the time. Why do you have to eat pasta with sauce? That's a want, and just eat white rice every day. It's like,
that's why all those lists of ethical rules and things fall down, because they, for example, some in the Buddhist time, even if they existed, only pertained to, say, monastic life or something, and didn't translate into sort of normal life. Or it's not that you should therefore disregard morals, ethics, laws, or whatever, but basically it's so subjective how people judge what people do with their money or their time or whatever, that only really whether that's you buying a yacht is coming out of pure preference, or whether it's coming out of some feeling of insecurity, and like the yacht would make you feel like you're a much better
I think this is the right distinction. So doesn't matter how grandiose the desire is. At the end, it's about what is the motivation behind the desire. The desire, is it pure preference, or is it a story that you tell yourself that if you are that boat, then you are somebody? So you want the body to fulfill the story that you are somebody. Then that's completely stupid. Better to realize that the story is nonsense than spend the money on a yacht that you will not even enjoy. But if it's born out of pure preference, you will probably really enjoy it. And so why not buy it? If you can, of course.
Why not, indeed?
But I wouldn't call it craving, you see. And even if you want to call it craving,
neither would I.
Then I will say there is nothing wrong with craving. I mean, then craving is fine.
As
long as it has the right motivation.
Well, that's why I think craving is just craving and aversion is often used, isn't it, to describe behaviors to do with reactivity, but they're symptomatic rather than causal. I think you understand this thing of having a deeper cause, and I think that you can't pin particular behaviors, you give particular behaviors necessarily those kind of labels, because it's so subjective how people would judge them. But I think yourself if you're doing something out of a knee-jerk reaction, or you're doing something because it's a pure preference.
Or I would say of a story. So if you're doing something because of a story or because of a pure preference.
Mm.
So how would you sum up based on this conversation, like fetter 4? We can always do 5 in the next video, or if you want, we add 5 now, but.
Well, no, because
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
4 and 5 are flip sides of the same coin. You know, the pushing and the pulling. You know, you could say desire is
It's
fetter.
exactly the same. I see. So one is
Yeah,
the
yeah. One
craving and
is
one is the aversion, basically.
yeah. Those are the kind of symptoms of the
But again, there is
underlying
nothing wrong with aversion. I
illusion.
would say, I mean, no one wants to eat
Yeah,
poop, so it's like, I mean, it's like, I don't want to eat poop. So the desire, let's say I want, and it's a direct preference. It's like, I don't need to tell myself a story. So it's kind of stupid. So those guys, you can tell them, well, so why do you have so much aversion against eating poop? Is it a need or a want? I mean, are you going to die if you eat poop? I mean, maybe they will,
right.
because it can give them an infection. So I'm not sure, but then why
Yeah,
not, hurt themselves? I mean, because if is it a
right.
need or it's really stupid, this idea of is it a need or a want? It's something that you either like or dislike. The reason is why. So let's say
Yeah,
you dislike
this is
something,
why.
but maybe because you're telling yourself a story, or because you truly dislike it directly.
Well, this is why in some ways, I prefer not using the language of, what these fetters are called, desire and ill will, because people can get hung up on the language, desire, oh, craving, oh, or aversion, and they can react even to the labels. I prefer just to call it the reactivity illusion for that reason, because so many people actually,
Reactivity illusion.
yeah, that you have to
And what do you
react.
mean by the illusion? So what is the illusion about? What makes the illusion an illusion?
Well, that you have to regulate when things are not going as you prefer. You have to push and pull it, like you have to compensate.
So
You have
basically,
to
for
push and
you,
pull.
it boils down to the idea that if things don't go as you wish, you have to do something. It's the belief, the story that you
Yeah,
have to do something. You cannot just let it go. Basically,
yeah,
you must do
exactly.
something. This is the idea for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
four
For
and
some
five is the
people,
idea. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry. Go
you
ahead.
must just. Well, some people just feel that they can feel reactivity just as an urge to do something, anything to change the facts, to change the reality, to change how they feel. And it can just manifest as like, I'm not
So
even, I
they
can't
lose
even
the
sit.
optionality, basically. So they
Yes, they
lose
lose
the
all.
option. I see.
Excellent. Yes.
They feel they have less option than they actually have. So through this
Yeah.
illusion, reduces their option. So they feel they have to react no matter what. They have to react. They cannot not
Yeah.
react or choose different strategies. They must react immediately.
Yeah. It's as if there's something we have inside us that has to do that reacting
It's like, to
thing.
make an example. I mean, it's a
Mm.
I'm not sure if it's politically incorrect, hopefully not, but imagine that, for example, let's say there is a situation where you're in the street,
Hmm.
and let's say you have a gun on yourself, concealed, and you have your wallet. Some guy arrives, he wants to rob you, and he point his gun at you, and he say, "Give me your wallet." Now,
Hmm.
if you believe that you have to react immediately, then you will take out your gun and shoot him. But it's dangerous, because as you take out your gun to shoot him, he may shoot you. Whereas in reality, you could say, you know what? You take out your wallet, you give him to him, then he goes away, then you take out your gun and you shoot him while he's leaving.
Hmm.
I mean, maybe
Right.
that's illegal, so I'm not recommending anyone to do it, but it's just an example. So now you have an
Right.
extra option. You say, why do
Right.
I have to react immediately? Like, you're reducing your option. So you can, I mean, he's threatening you with a gun. Yes, you
Right.
have a gun. So let's say you can respond,
Hmm.
but you realize that, why do you have to respond right now? Why do you have to to take out your gun, and maybe when you see your gun, he shoot you first? You could give him the
Mm.
wallet, and then let's say when he goes down to pick up the wallet, you shoot him, assuming that's legal wherever someone is. But that's at least an option. Or you could even decide to just, maybe your wallet is empty, there is no money,
Yeah.
so you say,
Right.
whatever, not worth the risk, let him go with the wallet. But let's say there is
Yeah.
plenty of money, then you could say, I will shoot him later. I mean, but you look at all
Mm.
the options. So you say that for you, the desire to react is the idea that you feel that you must react immediately. So there is no other option. You lose all your options, and basically it's
Yeah.
just boils down to, you have to react immediately.
Yeah. I feel like it's a sort of form of slavery in a funny sort of way, to this illusion, because it really does send you on a roller coaster. You are compelled to react, or you think you are. And so what you're looking for when you're doing the inquiry into these illusions, let's pluralize them, is okay. So that there's this reactor thing in me that must necessarily fire off. Where is it? Can I find it? No, I know you don't like that language, but you look for it as if, yeah.
Do you think there?
It is.
Do you think there are some similarities with anger, where like you get angry and you have to react right away?
Right.
Is it? Do you think not what between what you're saying and anger in general, there are similarities? This feeling that you must react right away.
Oh, a lot. Anger is often how reactivity manifests, isn't it? Particularly, yeah, if you don't tend to I mean, people have these different responses, don't they? They can tend to be fearful. They can tend to be fawning. You know, a bit like the classic trauma responses, or you can fight. For a lot of people, when things don't go as they prefer,
let's say someone hurts you. Let's say someone hurts you. So if you get angry, usually you feel you have to respond immediately. Whereas you could still, someone hurt you, you feel hurt, and you could quietly plan your revenge, which could be actually more impactful. So to me, it feels that anger just reduces your options, and it seems similar to what you're saying. So the feeling that you have to react right away, you can still do something about it, but if I understand correctly, what you're saying is that you're reducing your options to it has to happen right now. But there are so many options in which you could have a delayed reaction, which could be more effective.
Well, yeah, but you can't even access those alternative responses if you're seeing red. You know, that classic, you know, I saw red, I couldn't do anything but, you know, kill him or whatever. You know, I mean, that's the classic, isn't it? People think that they just they say, well, I was beside myself, you know, I was out of control, I was, you know, that kind of, it reduces
you would
options.
agree that there are similarities between the reaction as in 4 and 5 and anger in general, the reduction of the option, the feeling that we have to do something about it immediately, basically.
Yes, I think that's it often happens that they're connected, that they're very similar in how they manifest.
I see.
Although people can have a kind of cold anger, can't they, which isn't, you know, more calculated, like you know. And that's not to say that I mean, I think what you're pointing at, though, with your more extreme examples, is that it's not that you can it's not that you have to be a doormat to the world. If someone is, you know, treating you badly, you can certainly stop them, walk away, do something else. But if
you could do something much worse, rather than just getting angry, you could plan their destruction, but just that it may take some time.
It might take some time, yeah. Or you could, you know, if someone steals your wallet, call the police. I mean, there's always that option too, isn't there? I mean, you might.
No, but this was an example where you actually have a gun. If they call the police, most likely you will never see your wallet again. But what I'm saying is, if you have most people say that they imagine that if they have the gun and the guy is pointing at them, they probably have to take out the gun immediately. You know this.
Right.
But in reality, there are many options. You could, for example, throw the wallet, the guy bends down, you take out your gun and you shoot him. Again, assuming that's legal. I'm not sure. So, but and then, or maybe I don't know. Maybe you could take the wallet and throw it in. You could take the let's say you take the wallet, you throw it in the trash can. So now what happens? It's not going in the trash can to dig. So eventually you will leave, and then you can take it, because of course you will be vulnerable if he try to take it from the trash can. So you could throw your wallet in the trash can. Then what happens? He's not going to take it. You just wait. Eventually he leaves, and then you take your wallet. So, but if you feel that you have to act immediately, then really, assuming you have the gun, then the only option you think that you have is to shoot him. But maybe it's very dangerous, because as soon as he sees your gun, he may shoot you.
Yeah. Well, similarly to you're right. And similarly to those kind of situations where you could act in anger and actually really harm yourself as well as someone else. With reactive.
Let's say someone loses it completely and he punched someone. That's most likely a very stupid idea.
Yes, it is, unless you're in the boxing ring.
Unless you're in the boxing, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered it as far as we probably can.
Okay. Yes.
Sitting, but there might be more to say on it. But maybe we'll move on to fetter 6 next time.
Okay. Perfect.
Prefer.